Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's study session. It is 6:30 on Tuesday, September 3rd. Happy day after Labor Day. Tonight we have a discussion related to City Hall Master Plan. And Scott?
Mayor McFarland, members of the council, you might remember about 9 months ago, we came to you with the idea of creating a master plan involving the City Hall campus to guide development in the short term and the long term. And over the course of the time since the city's acquisition of this property, a couple of decisions were made, and one was to sell the adjacent property to the Garnet folks because of the need for that, but then ultimately to site the city court building on the northwest part of the property. And so the idea of having something in place that we could refer to in relationship to what's going to happen in the short term and the long term. And we're talking specifically about the viability of the auditorium building and ultimately the gymnasium, the life of Building B, and the other needs that the city has. And it's always a difficult time to kind of look out there on the horizon and be thinking about the needs down the road. But you gave us the approval to do that, and so we embarked on the process of securing the services of Matrix Design Group. They have experience working in Casa Grande, and Stephen and I shared responsibilities to kind of lead that process. And we've now come to a point in time where we have some conceptual, what they're called relationship diagrams. And that is just kind of taking a look at this site, looking about what might go where, and then talking about other related issues. And so I provided a narrative to you and the three potential relationship diagrams that Matrix has done. But I specifically note at this point in time, as we began to talk about the potential location for Fire Station 501 replacement, one of the things that we began talking about was the issue of the placement of the fire station on the site and how that impacts the possible needs and development down the road. And with the idea that this is the area that station needs to be in, that vacant sites on the west side of the railroad overpass are too far out. One of the things that came up was the possibility of placing Station 501 replacement in Peart Park. It's hard to conceptualize that because the park's been there for so long and it is what it is, but we identified a couple of sites there as possibilities, and we talked to Matrix about what an addendum to the contract would cost to do conceptual drawing over there. And so we identified two sites in Peart Park. One we call the Marshall Street site, and that is adjacent to the north, adjacent to the communication center, the old police department. And that would have access on Marshall, but it would have access off of the east side as well, and gives us an opportunity to maybe be a little wider than the second site, which was just to the west of the Raleigh Restaurant. We call that the Florence Boulevard site because it would have direct access onto Florence Boulevard and would ultimately require, it appears would require the demolition of the Peart Center over there to place that site there. So those were two that came up as we talked about the potential for placement of Station 501. So what you have before you this evening are three conceptual relationship drawings. There's nothing in stone here at all. Obviously, when you look at it, you look at the presumed green space, and it's not going to be green anymore because I think you're going to be awarding a contract pretty quick on some redoing of our landscaping out front in order to be more water conscious. So we know that those things are going to change. The actual placement may change, but this gives us something to work from. And so the first one of those is construction of a replacement Building B, and we're talking about enough square footage to accommodate not only the needs of finance, IT, and HR that are in the building right now, but also other needs that might be necessary. And talk to Director Gallegos about the possibility of community services space, office space. They're a little cramped for right now. That would be a possibility anyways. And then siting of a future freestanding council chambers, presumably somewhere on the southwest side. So it faces this way and was kind of in that. That's the first conceptual. The second is the two buildings noted, the City Hall and Building B, but locating Fire Station 501 on the north side of the property between what would be the Building B site and the city court site. And then the third one, putting 501 on the southeast corner of the campus, and construction of a replacement Building B essentially.
Scott, do we have any visuals of that?
I'm sorry?
Do we have any visuals? I know we were sent them in our packet. I have a hard copy, but
I don't think did we send those to place, Stephen? We don't have those.
oh, it was in Larry's weekly report. But that was
Yeah, but not yet.
That was nothing
Yeah.
attached.
that was a lot of water under the bridge ago, Larry. Even though I have it.
Yeah, you do.
We'll make sure we supply those to anybody in our audience that would like them. And then the third one would be the placement of Station 501 on the southwest corner and construction of a replacement Building B. And it very well could be in this current site. Now, that creates some logistical problems, obviously, because of IT. We would have to find a temporary location, kind of move IT twice. But at least it gives you the idea of that and the balance of the property that is available for future development. None of these conceptual relationship diagrams presume any development on our property on 8th Street, east or west of the city court building over there, those properties that we own there. So those are the three conceptual drawings. We were far enough along that we wanted to bring it back to you, kind of show you the work, show you where we're at right now, and then including an aerial that shows you kind of highlights the Florence Boulevard and the Marshall Street potential sites for Station 501 in Peart Park. So we're ready to go with a contract addendum, but we wanted to kind of get your feeling or your impression of that possibility before we went down that road and spent any money in relationship to looking at those particular sites. So ultimately, we hope to be able to focus on a preferred alternative. Again, it would not be a document that will absolutely dictate what's going to go where, but it gives us something to work from. And certainly we've talked, even from a staff perspective, we talked about demolition of the auditorium. We've talked about timing issues because nothing can happen there until the demolition takes place. And so while it is, it's the budgetary authority for that project is in this year's budget, there's a lot of prep work. We have a preliminary asbestos evaluation that was done a number of years ago. Was able to get that from Ole Soberg, who actually had it, and so trying to gather some of these old documents that were done when a lot of discussion about remodeling. So that kind of sets the frame of this for you. With that, I'll turn it over to Larry, and maybe he can kind of guide us through getting your impression on where you think we are and how you think we should move ahead.
Thank you, Scott. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Stephen is looking for the email so we can pull up at least some of the conceptual layouts.
Yeah, it was a week ago this past Friday, Stephen.
Correct.
Yeah, and I mean, I can explain a little bit too, because I'm looking at it.
Sure.
If you want me to, Larry.
If I can, Mayor, just
Yeah.
as, before you do that, a couple of points that I want to raise to the council that I think are important.
There it is.
Number one is I want to talk briefly about the auditorium project. I know that the council has been very interested in ensuring that we have a path that we can pursue, and as the mayor and council is aware, we have been in dialogue with the elementary school district about the potential of a shared space at the auditorium that is on the middle school campus. That dialogue, those dialogues continue to transpire. In fact, we have engaged the Wilson and Company to start a feasibility plan, and we've got our first meeting scheduled with the school district, the elementary school district, and our team. I believe it's next week. And then from that point forward, we'll obviously be working through a variety of public outreach and better understanding whether or not, through that feasibility process, whether or not there is an opportunity for us to potentially share that space from an operational perspective. So that continues. I think that's a key element that I want to make sure the council is aware of, that we are still heading down that path. The second component, and as Stephen pulls this up, for the mayor and council, and it really goes along with the second point I want to make, we are still in the conceptual analysis of this. We're looking at options, and really, what I'm hoping for is direction from the council to actually continue the study. There's an engagement that would allow us to begin to refine this a little more, that we'd be bringing back information to the council, and then ultimately moving forward with what Scott explained as a master plan for the entire campus, something that can be memorialized and put into the records for future decisions. And so with that, Mr. Mayor and Council, as Stephen was able to locate the maps. Scott, I don't know, you had kind of highlighted and outlined some of this. You want to just quickly go over that again, and then we'll hand it back to the Mayor and Council?
Yeah, just so that you can see there again, alternative number one simply sites Building B on the southwest corner and puts the council chambers in a location that it makes sense in relationship to City Hall. And then the balance of the property is available for future development. And then alternative number two, Stephen, if you'll scroll up, basically takes that and adds Station 501 north. That would be, and there's ingress and egress issues with these things, and we recognize that. And then alternative three would simply does away with, at this point in time, the conceptual freestanding council chambers and puts the station on the corner and puts Building B out in front. So, and then again, if scroll up one more, Stephen, and we'll see the two sites. The one on the far left is the Marshall Street site next to the old police station, the communication center. And then that site right there would have access under Florence Boulevard. And again, both, I said 8th Street, that's 6th Street access, which is now a dead end there at the Dorothy Powell Center. So that's the concept of where we would be asking Matrix to look.
Yeah, and I think that by putting the fire station over, looking at it anyway, and that's what you're asking us to give you some guideline on whether we should engage Matrix to look at these two sites, right? Okay, so that being said, then that gives the city more room to grow in the future on this particular piece here that we're sitting on. And it also then builds a new council chambers that would be out in front, kind of central in the front of City Hall, plus then with existing future buildings back behind. So obviously it gives a little more flexibility if fire station is in one of these two locations, so it might be worth looking at, just my opinion. The only question I have, Larry, is does that kind of scrap our 6th Street expansion or 5th Street expansion?
Mr. Mayor, we anticipate that it will have an impact on 5th Street, yes.
Okay. Okay. I mean, not that that's a deal breaker, but. Matt, go ahead.
There was also a concept I thought of putting a 501 on the corner there and doing a multi-story building with offices on top. Is that not, or is that part of that one alternative? Is that feasible?
Essentially a multi-story fire station that.
I mean, doesn't, yeah, fire on the bottom and then maybe offices for someone else on top?
And I don't know that we have pursued that particular option in any real effort. It's something, certainly if the council would like us to look at that, it's something that we can do.
Yeah, and then the part, because the 5th Street was voted on in the GO bond,
Right.
Correct.
so I don't know what,
It's really this, it's, isn't it 6th that goes through? I know it's called 5th Street.
this is the concept right here.
Oh, okay,
Since
okay.
it's right here.
So it could still exist if the fire station was over here.
Right.
On the Florence Boulevard, is that what you called it?
Yeah, that's the,
The one
yeah.
by Rallies?
Yeah, Florence Boulevard location.
Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Herman, we did early on talk to the consultant about the concept of mixing the fire station with office space. And their comment back to us was, we don't really know of anything like that anywhere.
Okay. I just heard that at one point, so I didn't know. And I don't know,
Not that it couldn't be done.
I don't know if it would work with fire or what, I'm just not sure. I'm just trying to think different ideas, so.
I think it would be worth looking at his location, so
Yeah.
if that's some direction, I mean, I
Right.
think everybody's pretty
That
open
is
to
really that's really, number one, we wanted to give everybody an update on what we've been learning.
Yeah, yeah.
And number two, we wanted to get the direction on additional analysis on Pier Park. I will say that one of the logistical issues that we seem to be finding with each turn is, and Scott mentioned it very briefly, the ingress, egress issues that we are going to be confronted with, as well as the parking, the number of parking spaces that are going to be necessary here on campus. And it's been very clear to me, at least over the years, that the council is going to want to try to preserve as much of the administration function here at City Hall. This is, many people believe our City Hall is the heart of Casa Grande, and we want to keep those functions as close as we possibly can. And as Scott has pointed out prior, the idea of the decision that was made for the Garnett obviously was one that essentially limited some of our options for growth in the future.
I did notice the new signage though that's been going up.
Yes, the wave,
Yeah.
wafers.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Looks very nice.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions, or?
Just a
Comments?
comment, I think it is definitely something to look at. To me, it seems like the one on the left seems a little bit more natural, because that's where the current fire station is. But of course, I think we're gonna have some problems with community members getting rid of the whole park. You know, I mean, that's what concerns me, because it's right in the middle of our city, it's an old park. I know we don't have as many activities going on now, but, you know, so I would really like to see how much of that it's gonna take. And can we, you know, move, you know, can we take some of the parking lot over here by the communication center? Is that whole parking area still needed, or can we kind of expand the park out that way too, to make it bigger? I don't know.
Even if you put Fifth Street through, then you could still kind of expand the park
Yeah,
on the
that
south side
side
of
and-
Fifth Street.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Whether it's Ramada's
Yeah, yeah.
or whatever it is, but.
That's
And
a
I
good
think it'd be
idea.
best that the fire station be off of Florence Boulevard. Easy in, easy out for them. Then
Well, I mean, that's the way they have it
Back
today.
behind.
I mean, that's what, that's
Then
where,
have it move.
On Florence
back.
Boulevard.
On Florence
Okay.
Boulevard. No, on Florence Boulevard, so it's easy access to get out.
But if we
versus,
do that
versus-
remodel too.
Yeah.
yeah, well, if they can look at that, Larry, if they can just do a little more research on
Absolutely.
Yeah.
these two locations.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob? Go ahead.
Just an observation, and this is just my thoughts. It seems to me like all of this is actually several projects, and the possibility of getting one cart or two carts before the horses is very likely. It almost seems to me like we should engage in a strategic plan of certain goals to be priorities. For instance, I don't think we should start talking about demolition of the auditorium until we have a concrete agreement with the school system about a partnership on the other auditorium. I think that probably needs to be accomplished first so that we can tell our citizens, we've addressed that. We now have an auditorium that that can be used in city events, and maybe then address the auditorium. Are we going to tear it down, or what are we going to do? And once that's addressed, I think we've got the same question on the gymnasium. Are we going to clear that out? But I think all of that needs to be addressed before we start throwing out, we might put a new fire station in the park. Because I think people are going to get wound up about that, and they're going to want to give their 2 cents worth. Well, I don't think that we should be encroaching on park property. But I think all this needs to be laid out step by step by step, instead of trying to come up with some master plan that involves everything. Because one little glitch is going to throw the thing off. And I think we need to accomplish some small steps instead of trying to go after this big challenge.
Well, I think that's staff's opinion too, Bob. I think that
For
this
the
is
master plan.
this is just to put together the ideas, and then we'll probably put it into projects as they move forward. At least that's my understanding.
Yeah, and I would like to see that, because to be honest with
Yeah, I
you,
don't disagree with you there.
I don't really want a fire station in the park. I want it someplace else, but right now the auditorium's sitting there. And that's not even available, because I don't think we've made the decision to tear down the auditorium. We may have to reverse gears on that.
Mr. Lambert?
Yeah, you know, we've sat through 2 or 3 presentations where Pert Lane narrows to a lane. In each of the presentations, we see people walking outside. Yeah, we're talking about taking away valuable park space and probably our most unique park in the city. Just doesn't make sense to me. Plus, this building's a beautiful building. I don't know what the justification would be to build another city council chambers when we're utilizing this building. And it adds to the uniqueness of this entire city hall project, so. I'm sure we won't resolve this before December.
Probably not.
So I won't have to vote on it, but those are my thoughts, is why. Other than I think the third one would be the one that I would support.
Matt?
Also, there's a lot of huge trees in the park, and we're Tree City USA for all these years. And so I'm saying, but also Bob had a good point, we need to rank these projects, which I'm sure is
Yeah.
part of the plan, fire, finance, where we need it, and make sure we're ready for them. But I think that's what we're doing, right, is making this master plan so we can figure out
Exactly right.
where. But I guess the biggest part of it is, are we gonna take the park or not? That's what we need to decide.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, and I'm hearing it this evening, our concern as a staff is that we make a unilateral decision for one facility without giving any thought to anything else. And we ultimately want to make sure that we have options and that have been considered as we look at these conceptual layouts. And Councilman Huddleston, I do not disagree. We've got some more work that we need to do on the gymnasium front, regardless. I think there are individuals in the community that I believe would be concerned. There's others that believe it's a blight today and that we ought to be taking some action on it. And so, but essentially, at least from my perspective, I feel like we have to have a path before we make any decision on that front.
I think Stephen's meeting with the Wilson group this week, so we might have some more answers in terms of the auditorium at CG Middle and what that might look like.
Mr. Mayor, if I
So
can
it
just.
is moving forward.
To Councilman Lavender's perspective, I do think that that this feasibility study process is going to take 4 to 6 months for us to really have a good idea of whether or not there's going to be an opportunity for us to partner. I know that the elementary school district appears to be willing to look at the partnership, but they have some obligations with space that they utilize at their auditorium today that are going to have to be accommodated. So much of that will be negotiated as part of a use agreement. So there's some work that needs to be done on that front.
Yep, no doubt. Anybody else have any other comments or questions? Okay, did you all get what you need
I think so, Mayor.
from us? Okay. All right, thank you, and thank you to the council, and we'll stand adjourned until 7 o'clock. Regular council meeting starts.